The Polish government knew the war was coming. The Germans would do anything in their power to undo the Polish corridor, capture the free city of Danzig, and reunite the two sections of Germany, separated by a territory that gave Poland access to the Baltic Sea. The two nations realized a massive battle was about to erupt, but they had to pretend nothing unusual was happening to mislead the opponent. In true Trojan Horse fashion, Germany then sent an old warship, SMS Schleswig-Holstein, on a ceremonial visit to the port of Danzig. Inside its hull, hundreds of German soldiers silently awaited the start of the war. Early on September 1st, 1939, the warship fired the first shot of World War II against the Westerplatte naval base in a defiant surprise attack that was projected to dethrone the defending Polish forces in less than 10 minutes. However, the German deceivers had been misled, and the Polish had a catastrophic surprise of their own. Westerplatte base. Adolf Hitler had promised not to invade Poland, and Britain and France had made an oath to declare war if he did. On paper, there was nothing to worry about. But the Germans and the Poles knew what was lurking behind the scenes, and they secretly prepared for what was coming. The free city of Danzig was particularly problematic for the Poles. It was surrounded by German territory, and the great majority of the population were German speakers who sympathized with Nazi ideals. As such, the Polish minority in the city was at an unspeakable risk of being eradicated. To make matters worse, Poland only had a minuscule territorial asset to put up a defensive effort, a tiny naval depot outside the Danzig dock on the Westerplatte Peninsula. The naval base was just a few hundred meters from the city port, and the garrison inside would be tasked with defending the harbor if the Germans decided to attack. By August of 1939, the Polish garrison at Westerplatte consisted of no more than 88 men, but reinforcing the defenses or sending additional men would immediately alert German factions. Additionally, the East Prussian city of Elbing was just 37 miles away, facilitating an expedited military response if the Germans suspected Poland was strengthening their naval base. Ultimately, the Polish needed to be extremely careful to prepare for the worst. Trojan ship. Hitler wanted to attack the naval base at Westerplatte as soon as the invasion began, to prevent any attempts to reinforce the site. As such, Germany would need to have at least one ship stationed in the Danzig port before the war commenced. In a tactical operation not unlike that of the Trojan Horse in ancient Greece, Germany deployed SMS Schleswig-Holstein, an old Deutschland-class battleship, to pay the port of Danzig a so-called ceremonial visit. The ancient battleship played an essential role in World War I, especially during the Battle of Jutland, but in 1939, she was not seen as a significant naval threat anymore. Using that to their advantage, the Germans moored SMS Schleswig-Holstein in the city dock weeks before the invasion launch, carefully positioned as close to the Westerplatte as possible. It is unclear whether the German population in Danzig knew of the scheme. However, the Polish authorities had no idea that deep below the deck of the German vessel, a Marine shock troop company of 225 Marines awaited patiently with massive stockpiles of munitions. Secret reinforcement. The Polish knew that war was about to break out at any moment, and that the free city of Danzig would be a prime target for Germany. As such, they fortified their naval depot at Westerplatte. Each night, they would send dock workers home dressed as Polish soldiers, and real soldiers would then take their place in the morning. Consequently, Nazi spies operating from Danzig believed the naval base still had a garrison of fewer than 100 men, when in reality there were over 200 troopers. Little by little, the Polish military replaced all the civilian workers in the naval depot with military reinforcements, but they needed more to slow the German advance. Thus, they secretly built an advanced network of defensive structures around the naval base. The process was painful and excruciating, as they had to construct bunkers, ditches, trenches, barbed wire fences, and secretly reinforced concrete walls without the help of the locals. Most of the work took place under cover of night. By the advent of September, the Polish had managed to drastically reinforce the naval base at Westerplatte. Meanwhile, the Germans were assured by the local Danzig police that the frailly protected military post would fall in less than 10 minutes. The Germans placed most of their confidence in their secret plan to attack using SMS Schleswig-Holstein and the hidden soldiers in it, but both sides were about to fall into their foe's trap. The clash. The infamous order of attack was given in the small hours of September 1st, 1939, and SMS Schleswig-Holstein rushed to face her guns against the Polish naval depot and garrison. The night's calm was suddenly shattered by the raucous thundering of the German battleship's guns, unleashing their munitions onto the fortified bulwarks at Westerplatte. The pugnacious assault would go into the annals of history as the first gunfire exchange of World War II. In their eagerness, however, the Germans had positioned their battleship too close to the naval base, which resulted in their largest shells failing to explode on impact. Despite the deafening din of battle engulfing the entire naval base, the initial attack inflicted no casualties and allowed the Polish officer in command to send a distress message. As SMS Schleswig-Holstein repositioned herself and continued the dilapidation of the Polish base, the Germans sprang their other trap. Just before the ship attack, the 225 German soldiers descended from the hiding spots within the vessel and intended to unleash a surprise attack on the naval depot by land as the confused Polish defenders struggled against the battleship. However, after traversing the artillery-breached brick wall at the border, advancing 220 yards, and engaging the Polish outpost, the interlopers were abruptly ambushed. The Germans found themselves in the middle of a fervid trap devised by the Polish defenders. Then, in a shrewd orchestra of destruction, the Poles unleashed a series of artillery and mortar attacks on both the ambushed infantry troopers and the battleship. Soon, another hostile maritime unit of the Danzig police attacked the Polish garrison while trying to land on the western side of the depot. However, the Polish exerted complete dominion over the surrounding areas, and the Danzig police were forced to flee for their lives. Minutes later, the ambushed German troopers started to retreat in the face of overwhelming casualties. Even so, the German infantry regrouped and made another attempt to storm the naval base, but they were met by a merciless Polish defense that included mines, felled trees, barbed wire, and intense fire from several directions. Epic last stand. The post that was supposed to be taken almost without effort ended up holding firm for several days, during which the Germans grew increasingly desperate. The Germans concluded that the Poles had constructed extensive underground and armored fortifications throughout the peninsula, and were confident the garrison was armed with several artillery units, when in fact, they only had a few mortars available. A massive offensive against the tiny naval depot was then launched with continuous naval fire, artillery shelling, and a two-wave air raid by 60 Junkers Ju-87 Stuka dive bombers that dropped 26.5 tons of explosives. The onslaught finally took a toll on the brave Polish men, who suffered considerable casualties, lost their mortars and their only working radio, and had their remaining food supplies destroyed. The appalling attack swallowed the Polish base in dust and smoke, which actually gained them some time. The depleted Polish garrison considered surrendering, but they opted to continue fighting. They then repelled numerous enemy probing attacks, while the Germans continued to tread lightly, believing they were dealing with a larger force. After several fruitless attacks, the German forces began executing more cunning incursions. At 3 a.m. on September 6th, they sent a burning cart towards the Polish positions, but the gambit failed when the frightened driver uncoupled prematurely. The rigged cart could not reach the intended oil cistern, igniting the nearby forest instead. By the 7th, the Poles were reaching the end of their supplies and fortitude. Many men did not make it, and and several survivors were injured or suffering from gangrene. Nevertheless, the heroic garrison would have to withstand one more attack. Soon, the Germans descended into the post with flamethrowers and explosives, destroying the remaining guardhouses where the Poles were taking shelter. After that, the defenders could not fight anymore. Aftermath. At 9:45 a.m. on September 7th, a white flag appeared over the ramparts of the Polish naval depot. For 7 days, the small garrison of patriotic men had held back the German advance, even as they conquered the rest of the country. A few Polish soldiers managed to keep over 3,000 German troops, several warships and artillery units busy for an entire week. And the German commander was so impressed with his Polish counterpart that he allowed him to keep his ceremonial Polish saber, even as he was taken as a prisoner of war. Ultimately, the Germans suffered 200 casualties, while the Poles only lost 55 men. A few days later, Hitler himself visited the city of Danzig, where he inspected the depot at Westerplatte and expressed respect for the defensive efforts of the Polish men. Thank you for watching our video. To learn more about the most legendary military stands in human history and the incredible weapons that changed the fate of the world, check out the rest of our Dark Documentaries channels, where we publish thrilling warfare stories regularly. Stay tuned.